Imagine just for a second that you are walking into a high society Parisian salon.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right. The year is 1810. You know, the heavy oak doors swing open. You are greeted by the glow of candlelight. It's reflecting off these crystal chandeliers.
Oh, very fancy.
There's the rustle of expensive silk everywhere, the murmur of hushed, polite conversation. It really looks like the absolute height of elegance.
But there's a catch, I assume.
Oh, there's a massive catch. Underneath that super polished surface, you haven't stepped into some relaxing sanctuary of leisure. You've basically walked into a behavioral ledger.
A ledger. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because every single word you say, every compliment you accept, every person you associate with it is being quietly audited by everyone else in the room.
It sounds exhausting, honestly.
It really does. So the question for you is, how do you survive this environment without entirely ruining your reputation or, just losing your mind completely?
It is a genuinely terrifying prospect when you break down the actual mechanics of it, because you are navigating this space where the rules of engagement are incredibly rigid, but they're also largely unspoken.
Which is the worst combination.
Exactly. And the penalty for breaking them isn't just someone giving you a dirty look. It is complete, devastating social exile. Your literal your economic and social viability depends entirely on the perception of the collective.
Which is exactly why today's deep dive is functioning as a sort of 19th century survival manual for navigating hyper-competitive, toxic social networks.
I love that framing.
Right, because we are looking at an 1810 French conduct manual. It was published in Paris by Leprier, and it's titled L'homme de bonne compagnie, or The Man of Good Company.
A classic text.
Yeah, and this specific copy is preserved in the Library of Congress collection, digitized via the Internet Archive. But our approach today is actually a little bit unusual.
We're taking a detour.
We are. We aren't even going to look at the main text. We are exclusively deconstructing the book's incredibly obsessive, highly descriptive table of contents.
And honestly, the index alone is a masterpiece of psychological profiling.
It really is.
It reads less like a standard list of page numbers and more like like a diagnostic manual of the era's deepest societal paranoias.
Yes.
By isolating these specific chapter summaries, and we'll be analyzing the concepts from parts 4, 5, and 6 today, we can reverse engineer the underlying machinery of human vanity.
The hidden rules of status, basically.
Precisely. And the very real dangers of existing in a society that is built entirely on perception.
So if maintaining your reputation is the main goal here, how do you actually protect yourself? I mean, let's just bypass the etiquette of tea drinking and look at the defensive posture this book demands.
This is intense.
Super intense. The manual's index establishes a baseline that is, frankly, rather alarming. Before you even attempt to charm anyone, it insists you must develop an inalterable probity.
An unwavering moral integrity.
Right, a strict moral shield. And it demands this specifically because of the threats listed immediately after it in the index, which are false honesty and hypocrites of virtue.
Ah, yes. The placement there is deeply intentional.
How so?
Well, the author isn't suggesting moral integrity just so you can feel warm and fuzzy about yourself. They are prescribing it as a literal defensive shield. Let's unpack that phrase. Hypocrites of virtue.
Okay.
The manual is identifying a very specific psychological mechanism here. These are just people faking a polite smile at a party. A hypocrite of virtue weaponizes morality.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they perform this impossibly high, rigid moral standard in public. And not because they actually believe in it, but to create a trap.
So they can catch someone else messing up.
Exactly. They establish a fake moral high ground so they can actively isolate or destroy a rival who inevitably fails to meet that fabricated standard.
It's basically 19th century purity testing.
That's exactly what it is.
You establish a rule that you don't even follow yourself just to catch someone else breaking it. And that perfectly contextualizes the next sections in the index, the ones devoted to the desire to harm and the exaggerations of envy.
It's so cutthroat.
It forces you to realize that if you walk into that 1810 salon we talked about earlier, the baseline emotion you should expect from the people handing you a glass of champagne isn't camaraderie. It is straight up envy.
Envy is the operational engine of this entire society. The author dedicates substantial space to the despicable maneuvering of some men of the world, what they call the manège méprisable.
Right.
The assumption here is that true merit is incredibly rare. And, more importantly, it is highly threatening to the status quo.
Because it exposes everyone else.
Exactly. If you possess actual talent or genuine virtue, you are an immediate threat to the carefully constructed illusions of everyone else in that room. Therefore, their natural instinct is to dismantle you.
I have to challenge the premise slightly, though, like just playing devil's advocate.
Go for it.
If everyone in this circle is supposed to be, by definition, good company, why is the author so obsessed with hypocrites and vipers? Shouldn't a book about good company focus on, I don't know, creating harmony rather than surviving a psychological war zone?
That is a great question. And you're touching on the central anxiety of post-revolutionary France, which is exactly the era when this was published.
Oh, right, the social upheaval.
Huge upheaval. The old aristocracy and the new elite were just being smashed together. No one really knew who actually belonged anymore. So the author is drawing a very hard, cynical line between the appearance of good company and the reality of it.
So the appearance versus the reality.
Right. The manual explicitly contrasts those despicable maneuverings we just mentioned with sublime examples of greatness of soul. The text argues that society is just saturated with people who have mastered the false exterior.
They have all the right forks, they know how to bow.
They possess flawless manners, but they are completely hollow on the inside.
So the manners are really just camouflage.
Precisely. To truly be a man of good company in this author's eyes isn't about learning how to seamlessly manipulate others. It's about developing this psychological resilience, that strength of soul, to withstand the manipulation of everyone else.
Without becoming corrupted yourself?
Right. You need that inalterable probity, because if your self-worth relies on the validation of hypocrites, you will be destroyed by them. You have to constantly audit your own internal state because, well, the world is relentlessly auditing your external one.
Assume everyone is a hypocrite until proven otherwise, and keep your own soul intact. I mean, it's a grim starting point.
Very grim.
But let's say you have your armor on, you've survived the initial wave of envy. You still have to play the game, right? You still have to interact with these people.
You can't just stand in the corner in silence.
Exactly. So how do you go on the offensive and actually gain favor without looking desperate? That brings us to this society's ultimate currency, which is praise.
Ah, yes.
But as part 5 of the index reveals, giving and receiving praise is treated as a highly volatile, really dangerous transaction.
It is the ultimate test of your social acuity. The section titled On Praises and Their Value immediately identifies the primary vulnerability of the salon goer, which is the thirst for praise and the desperate desire for a great reputation.
And when you're thirsty, you'll drink anything.
Including poison, yes. The manual first targets the people who try to manufacture their own praise, the boasters, or as the text calls them, the fanfarons.
The fanfarons. I love that word. Even without knowing French, it just sounds like someone aggressively blowing a trumpet in a quiet room.
It really does.
The manual describes the act of boasting as a perilous leap. The saut perileux. But let's look at this from the boaster's perspective for a second.
Okay.
In a society where your status is totally dependent on perception and everyone is secretly trying to tear you down out of envy, isn't boasting kind of a rational defense mechanism?
You mean like getting ahead of the narrative?
Yeah. If you don't claim your space and assert your own value, no one else is going to do it for you, right?
It might feel rational in the moment, sure, but the author calls it a perilous leap because of the actual physics of a leap.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. When you jump for a brief second, you are elevated above everyone else. But you have also entirely abandoned your solid footing. You are relying on the hope that when you finally land, the reality of your merit will actually support the height of your claim.
And if it doesn't, you just crash.
Exactly. The manual points to the pride of birth and chimerical greatness. So people who are constantly citing their ancestors to prove they matter.
Yeah, like, my great-grandfather was a duke.
Yes. They are jumping off a cliff with no parachute, demanding respect based on an illusion rather than actual demonstrable utility in the present.
We see the exact same behavior today, just on totally different platforms.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the LinkedIn flexing, you know, or the carefully curated humble brag on social media. It's the modern equivalent of citing a duke from 3 generations ago to justify why you deserve the corner office today.
It's the exact same impulse.
People are still trying desperately to prove their importance, and the manual's label of outrageous impertinence applies perfectly. The underlying insecurity hasn't changed at all.
No, the medium evolves, but the human ego remains completely static. However, the manual's most sophisticated analysis isn't really about the clumsy people who praise themselves.
Oh.
No, it's about the surgical nature of how we praise others. This is where the text transitions from a simple critique of bad manners to an exploration of actual psychological warfare.
Okay, now we're talking.
Flattery is not treated as a polite social lubricant here. It is categorized explicitly as insidious praises.
Let's unpack how that blindness works, because on the surface, giving someone a compliment seems like the safest, most agreeable thing you can do at a party. How does a compliment become insidious?
Well, a standard compliment acknowledges a reality, like nice coat. Insidious praise, though, is a cognitive anesthetic.
A cognitive anesthetic, wow.
Right, when someone flatters you strategically, they aren't just commenting on your coat. They are targeting your deepest, most insecure desire. Let's say you secretly worry you aren't intelligent enough. The flatterer aggressively validates your intellect. And once your ego is fed that highly specific targeted validation, your threat detection system just shuts down.
You stop looking for the trap.
Exactly. You stop questioning their motives, because to question their motives would mean you have to question the compliment they just gave you. And you really, really want that compliment to be true.
That is a terrifying psychological trap. You are basically being manipulated using your own vanity as the leverage.
It's incredibly effective.
Think about the last time you accepted a compliment at work that you knew deep down you didn't quite earn. Maybe a colleague praised your, I don't know, unique problem-solving skills right before dumping their own disastrous project onto your desk.
Exactly.
The author of this manual is looking right at you, warning that your ego just accepted a Trojan horse. You let your guard down, and now you are doing their work.
And the manual notes that this blindness affects absolutely every demographic. It highlights the jealousy of vain women towards their rivals and the jealousy of men regarding the success of others.
So nobody is immune.
Nobody. Both are driven by the exact same vulnerability to flattery and the same petty desire to erase a competitor's success. And to really emphasize the gravity of this, the author pulls the camera way back.
Right, I noticed this in the index.
Yeah, in the section on the art of praising, the index suddenly references a beautiful trait of Muhammad II and a word of Pythagoras.
That stuck out to me so much. Placing ancient philosophers and Ottoman sultans right next to warnings about, like, silly salon gossip.
It's quite the tonal shift.
It is, but the author is elevating the stakes here. Managing your ego, recognizing insidious praise, knowing how to properly value real qualities. This isn't just about surviving a dinner party. This is the mechanism by which empires rise and fall.
Absolutely.
A leader who surrounds himself with insidious flatterers will eventually lose his kingdom because he is operating in a state of voluntary blindness.
It frames etiquette as applied philosophy. The art of praising requires the rigorous wisdom of a philosopher. You must learn to deliver exact, truthful validation of real merit rather than simply offering silly praises just to soothe the egos of the powerful.
Because if you participate in the insidious flattery, you just become part of the toxic machinery.
Exactly. You lose your inalterable probity.
Which naturally leads to the consequences. If you fail to manage these dynamics, like if you boast too much or succumb to the blindness of flattery, society has a mechanism for dealing with you.
And it's not pretty.
No. This is cataloged in Part 6, the section on the flaws of the mind and heart, where the character sketches become incredibly vivid.
The author provides what is basically a comparative anatomy of social failures. They contrast the fat in French, which is essentially a man consumed by his own vanity and foolishness, with the true gentleman, the gallant home. But the most devastating critique is delivered through a specific metaphor regarding false delicacy and the amiables of the day. The index lists this phrase: jays adorned with the feathers of the peacock, or j'ai pari des plumes du paon.
It's a direct allusion to the Aesop fable, right?
Yes, exactly.
For those who might not remember, the plain, unremarkable jay finds these discarded peacock feathers, sticks them into his own tail, and struts around believing he has totally transformed into something magnificent.
He thinks he's fooled everyone.
But when the wind blows, the feathers fall out, and he is violently rejected by both the peacocks he tried to join and the jays he abandoned. It is the ultimate 19th century burn.
It really is.
You aren't special. You've literally just glued someone else's expensive ideas to your coat.
And notice how society responds to the jay. The text warns of the public vengeance that awaits those who succumb to the illusions of self-love. It specifically notes vain women who claim a beauty or status they simply don't possess.
But how exactly does a polite society execute public vengeance? I mean, they aren't throwing tomatoes in the salon, are they?
No. Public vengeance in this context is a deeply passive-aggressive societal correction They don't confront you directly. That would be poor form.
Right, too messy.
Instead, they weaponize your own voluntary blindness against you. They will quietly encourage your delusion. They will offer you more insidious praise, letting you strut higher and higher in your borrowed peacock feathers.
Oh, that's so mean.
They are fully aware of the fragility of your disguise. The vengeance is the collective anticipation of the moment your feathers inevitably fall out. And at that point, the entire room will flawlessly execute your social ruin with absolute politeness.
Wow, they just let you build your own scaffold.
Yes.
So here is the ultimate dilemma then. In a society built on presenting a polished exterior where your reputation is basically your livelihood, how do you successfully communicate your actual talents without accidentally becoming the jay in peacock feathers?
It's the million-dollar question.
Right. How do you exist in this space without being destroyed by the hypocrites or blinding yourself with your own vanity?
Well, the author provides the antidote to all of this psychological warfare at the very end of the index. It is the concept of the just milieu, the golden mean, or the happy medium.
Okay.
And it is the hardest state of being to achieve because it requires total, unvarnished self-awareness.
I feel like the happy medium usually sounds like a vague platitude, just be balanced. But to make this actionable, what does highly calibrated authenticity actually look like in practice, according to the book?
The manual operationalizes the golden mean through two specific directives. First, neatness and precision in language, and second, the art of making one's advantages and talents valued.
So it doesn't want you to just hide.
Not at all. It does not advocate for shrinking into the background. You must make your talents valued. But precision in language means you state the exact weight of your feathers. No more, no less.
Oh, I see. So if we apply this to a modern professional setting, like a performance review, if you led a project that increased revenue by 20%, the just milieu means you sit down and say, I implemented this strategy and it resulted in a 20% increase. You don't take the perilous leap and say, I single-handedly saved this entire department from total collapse, because that's the boast.
Yes, and equally importantly, you don't engage in what the text calls bigottism, which is a sort of prudish, false humility or misplaced restraint.
Oh, right.
You don't say, oh, it was nothing, just a minor team effort. I barely did anything at all.
Because false humility is just another form of manipulation.
Exactly.
If you pretend you don't have talents when you clearly do, you are still playing the game. You are still trying to control perception by basically fishing for someone to disagree with you and offer you praise.
You hit the nail on the head. Both boasting and false humility are driven by an obsession with the external gaze. The just milieu is achieved when you finally detach your self-worth from the salon's behavioral ledger.
You stop caring about the audit.
Right. You require modesty, always well-placed in good sense, which honestly loops us all the way back to the beginning. You cannot execute precision in language on the outside unless you possess that inalterable probity on the inside.
It's all connected.
It is. You have to know yourself so intimately and value your own true merit so securely that the insidious praises and the hypocrites of virtue simply bounce off you.
Which really transforms this entire text. It isn't a manual about how to act, it's a manual about how to be.
Beautifully said.
And what does this mean for you listening right now? We obviously aren't wearing 19th century Parisian fashion, and we aren't worried about being labeled a fop or a sybarite in those exact terms.
Though maybe we should bring those terms back.
Maybe we should. But we absolutely still navigate this exact same psychological architecture every single day.
We constantly deal with the cognitive anesthetic of flattery at work. We roll our eyes at the modern fanfarons leaping off cliffs on our social feeds.
Yes, every time I open LinkedIn.
And we struggle immensely to strike that golden mean between advocating for our genuine achievements and falling into the delusions of self-love. The human ego, the desperate desire to be seen and valued, and the terror of being exposed as an imposter, none of that has evolved since 1810.
It really hasn't. We are all just trying to avoid being the jay in peacock feathers. Which I think leaves us with one final, deeply provocative detail tucked quietly near the end of part 4 of this index.
Oh, the Pliny reference.
Yes. Among all the cynical warnings about the brutes du monde, the endless rumors and gossip of the world, there is this sudden, heartbreaking reference to an ancient Roman letter. The index reads, "The regrets of Pliny the Younger on the loss of a virtuous friend."
In a sea of tactical advice for surviving vipers and hypocrites, it is a stunning moment of vulnerability.
It really stands out.
Pliny the Younger wrote about the profound grief of losing someone who possessed true greatness of soul. It is a reminder of what actual human connection looks like when it is finally stripped of all the societal maneuvering.
And the very next section dictates the duty of a man of merit, which is strict self-examination. So consider the author's final challenge for your own life.
It's a tough one.
It is. If you were to vanish from your professional or social circle tomorrow, what would the rumors of the world actually say about you? Would you be remembered merely as a beautifully dressed jay, someone who flawlessly participated in the false honesty and the insidious flattery of the day? Or, after a strict self-examination, can you confidently say that the people you leave behind would genuinely mourn the loss of a truly virtuous companion? It is the ultimate, uncompromising test of the golden mean.